when people are dealing with that conflict, and maybe they have pressure from their parents or pressure from a job or pressure from something else, what would you say to them to help them maybe navigate this information and either create space for themselves to really think through these things and be in a good place with it, or to, push back on their environment a little bit if need be?
Well, there's a couple of different things. The first one is, like we talked about earlier, getting to know yourself and who you truly are is the key to standing strong in all those different situations. So if you find yourself focusing on the environment around you or social pressures or different things like that, it it is important to turn that off and spend some time reflecting carefully with the help of others or through your own study and reading or whatever it is, to get a sense of who you truly genuinely are. Because when you're in touch with that and then you make decisions or act in relation to that, it's so authentic that you're not embarrassed or stressed about it, just generally speaking. From a measurement perspective, when we're talking about people wanting the result to be a certain way, right? Like you were talking about, the people who design and develop personality tests have known about this for a long time, and so a lot of them have been built with what we call um, they're built so that what we call social desirability bias doesn't skew the results, or what's also been called non-purposeful responding. And so if you look at an inventory like the one I mentioned earlier, the first one I mentioned, the Personality Research Forum, the PRF, Doug Jackson was really a pioneer in this area. He has a few items, here and there throughout the long inventory of questions, like I don't know, true or false, I make all my own clothes and shoes. And then another one later, I have a glass eye. And so, most people don't do those things. All right. There will be some, but the vast majority of people don't. So if you find that an inordinate number of those items, which are keyed in a particular direction, tend to be answered in the non-keyed direction, it's evidence that someone's not really paying attention to what's going on. That's called non-purposeful responding. And then the social desirability bias is simply items that cue on or load on or relate to things that are genuinely viewed in popular culture as being maybe cool or desirable or whatever it is, and then the answer is very much in line with what is popular. And this changes over time, by the way. So inventories of personality and tests need to be, new editions need to come out to reflect what is socially desirable at a particular time. So whether it's from the test taker's perspective, the one wanting to learn their personality, again, I think the key is spend time getting to know who you are, with the understanding that whoever you are, there's a place for you, there's a space for you. You just have to get to know who you are first, and then that's good enough. No matter what your personality type is, you'll be able to deal with a lot of different pressures and environments as long as you know who you are first. And then, but I think it's very interesting in terms of measuring personality. The tests tend to do a pretty good job of indicating if somebody's, trying to cover up who they might truly be. But it's a real thing. You're absolutely right.
And I really want to dig into that next step too, because when you do, all right, so you make some space. Let's say, you're undergrad, you're in classes, you're taking these tests, you're learning these things, you haven't really experienced the working world yet. And I know you've worked with a lot of folks in this position. I want to be able to use this information in a way that sets me up for career success. And I think, the typical way people think about that is make a lot of money. But there's a lot of different factors that contribute to success, right? Longevity in a career, not changing every X number of years, not having to start over 10 years in or something like that. And I'm curious, when it comes to longevity and bringing back this idea of stress management, I think one of the things that people struggle with the most in their career is getting into a job that doesn't align to their personality, which creates undue stress, which creates a kind of cascading effect for the next 25 years of, figuring things out. And maybe some of that is necessary, but What would you say to someone who's in that position, and what should they be thinking about, or what should they be considering when looking at companies, looking at jobs, looking at roles? Once they have a somewhat idea of what their personality is, how do you assess environments and pick things that will align to your personality? What sort of things should they look for, or red flags should they watch out for?
Sure. First of all, it's really important to have a profound sense of faith. Faith in who you are, faith in your values and what you believe in. And getting to know yourself is key to that. But if you have that sense of faith, you're able to say things to yourself like, it won't always be this way. And the truth is it won't. But that's not a rational calculus right there. You can't think your way through that one. You have to feel your way through that one, which takes you down to the level of your values and knowing what your traits and your character and your makeup is. So that kind of faith leads to a kind of discipline for being able to deal with things that may not be all that pleasant in the present time, but knowing that they won't always be this way. That is a kind of mindset. It is germane to resilience and the ability to deal with an environment that is not necessarily exactly what you might want it to be, because you know that you're moving through it into some future where things will be better and better for you. The other part of this is very much related, but it's more related to how you process information. Don't spend a lot of time thinking about the future because you can't predict it. Um, if anything, your values are what predict the future. I mean, I work with a lot of entrepreneurs and I tell them, you have to learn to feel the future. Your values are a very special element of your character and your personality and your person. They have the character of expectations about the future. They are what enable you to see the future because you can feel the future. Why? Well, because when you're in a highly uncertain environment, you're going to tend to behave in light of your values. If you like to fight, if you like to explore, if you like to hide, if you like to run, whatever makes you you, that's what you will tend to do when you're in a radically uncertain environment. And that will be natural. You won't have to think about it, and it will have an effect on the environment around you. And you can almost, in a self fulfilling way, create the environment that you want to be in if you have the discipline and the mindset to do that. Most people don't. It's something that you have to learn or be taught or mentored into. And so as a result of them not understanding it, they tend to think about the future. And if you think and predict about the future, there are huge gaps in your thinking that allow your fears to creep in there. And your fears are kind of like the dark side of hope. They're literally functionally equivalent to hope and faith. Like I said, they are the dark side of that because they're an irrational. They don't come from your values, they come from your fears. You're afraid something may happen that you don't want to happen. And so you concoct stories and theories and hypotheses about what might happen. So I would advise young people, get to know yourself first, your values and your traits, and then play to that, work in relation to that, make decisions in relation to that, and have faith that the larger environment the universe will reward you for doing that. The good energy that you're putting out by living your life in this way will come back around to you with opportunities that emerge. If you don't live that authentically and instead you try to forecast some sort of future with your thinking, you're playing a game, man. You're trying to learn these rules and play a game like chess, and sometimes you lose. And it's not the right way, in my opinion, to think about one's professional life. So this kind of purpose-driven life, and by the way, all this stuff that I'm riffing on right now, I believe it's what, know thyself, or, even back to the classics, the Greek philosophers, the unexamined life is not worth living. I believe that's what they were talking about when they made those kind of statements in, classic ancient Greek, or, the different sorts of languages that we've translated it into this. But I think knowing thyself, but knowing your own values and then behaving in relation to that is key, not just for your success, but for your health.